as promised, I'm back here for the markets at intraday, still from our studio at the NGX. And we look at trading day at this time. We see the NGX has crossed over to 106,000. In fact, it's at 106,750.63, and that's up 0.17% at intraday. That's good news. Let's find out the drivers of this and other information with Dr. Ayode Jebo right here, the Managing Director of Optimus by AfriInvest. Dr. Jebo, good afternoon, and welcome to the studio.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so we did see 2 days ago the market was kind of cold, not moving so much. Yesterday, intraday, we saw that, but now it seems things are moving. What's happening?
No, I think that is the bellwether stocks. So you look at the likes of Dangote Cement that most remained stagnant for months before the active trading started like 2 weeks ago. So investors are already seeing that the current level is attractive, and we're seeing a lot of interest in that. You also see MTN, for instance, and these stocks form a major part of the
MTN market. Has to do with the tariff, or
yes.
Is it?
Yeah, yes, it's the.
But there's a threat from the lawmakers to suspend the tariff hike.
Yeah, but I think that it's really very clear if we want to be objective that the last 10 years we have not increased prices. The exchange rate has moved, price of diesel has moved. So I think the engagement will go on, and I don't see anything that should stop that, because it's really justified if they really want them to be in business.
Yeah, because the telco said this is for survival, for sustainability, not even for profitability.
And when you look at they are systemically important to the economy. Everything, as we're here, we're also
exactly connecting to the studio and everything.
They can't afford that that industry shut down.
All right, so we see Dangote Cement, but what's bringing up Dangote Cement? Any news around Dangote Cement?
No, I think that if we follow this, if we look back, there was a time that the stock moved to close to about 700 naira, and over time it declined. So it's getting to a level where investors are comfortable to come in. Because if you also look at it fundamentally, you look at their 9-month results, it's also very strong. So we think that investors are now, that have been waiting, anticipating it for months, are now beginning to just purchase the stocks. And in terms of dividend yield, even the last dividend was over 100% payout. It means that Dangote Cement paid out of reserves. So they also have very fantastic dividend payout history.
So it paints a picture that even as we speak, there are some investors who just sit down and look at the stocks and see, okay, when this price, I know there are even softwares or so that allow you
technical analysis.
Yeah, when this price comes down to this, just buy. When it gets to this, just
and those
sell.
are like limit orders that for some, those are short-term investors. But typically we always encourage, because the market is good for long term, so you always have that long term horizon if you are coming to the market, if you are not an expert.
So apart from these two you've mentioned, which since they are surging, I don't know if it's a good time to buy. What else could investors be looking into around the markets? Okay,
first thing I always say, one of the principles is that when you see a stock moving, so I'd say don't join a fast-moving train if you are not able to join it before it kicks off. So now investors need to play a bit of caution and see maybe there will be a bit of pullback and consolidation before it begins to move. We saw that even with MTN around 250 before now moving again. So when you also look at the agri sector, when you look at likes of Okomu, Presco looks, based on valuation, cheaper compared to Okomu. And looking at what they do, oil palm is like the next oil. The demand is very strong. When you see consolidation, you take advantage of that, and you also plan to be able to invest for the long term. So we think that when you look at that sector, the banking sector, I would say that the listing of the shares is also what a bit of investors needs to be cautioned about. That's the offer shares. But and also looking at the expectation that interest rates will also come down. So for long-term investors, they should not be very aggressive going into the banking sector space at this level. And then you also want to look at the oil and gas space.
Eternal oil has been moving. I thought it would be MRS, with the connection with Dangote and all.
Yeah, so I think that there's speculation around MRS maybe leaving the exchange, and there are still a lot of speculations around that. So maybe investors are a bit very cautious around that. But you look at the likes of Aradel. Yes, based on when they release their result, very impressive. That also moved and is consolidating. So for investors that are long term, is when you see stocks that are maybe consolidating around a certain level and they have strong fundamentals. That's always the best time to also come in gradually into some of those stocks. You see the likes of Seplat is on full offer. It means it's a seller's market. Most people are not buying. Yes, it has remained at that level for weeks now. So there's a need. That's why for professional advice, when you're also coming to the market, I tell people that when we have headache, you consult the doctors. But Nigerians, most times, you want to always solve the problem yourself. So there's a need to understand timing is really very critical when you come into this market, and fundamentals is also, so that you don't lose your hard-earned money.
So apart from the stock market now, MPC is meeting next week. What are the sentiments around that, maybe from the fixed income markets and other levels of investments?
Okay, so on the back of the primary market auction, T-bills, we saw a lot of activities. Yields came down because you had the auction. Yields also came down given the demand of about 3 trillion naira on the 364-day instruments. But what we see that MPC will be focused more on now is they're expecting the inflation, the rebased inflation rate would also guide their direction, and I think that's what may be responsible for the rescheduling of the meeting that we saw. But for the fixed income, I would say investors, the expectation is that this high interest rate cannot be kept at this level for long. So you go long. When we say go long, invest in longer dated instruments. With CPs, go for the 270 days. If it's treasury bills, go for the long tenor. So you lock in. There's what we call reinvestment risk, so which is the risk that if your investment matures, if interest rate has dropped, it means you are investing at a lower rate. So when you look at your overall return would have dropped. So these are some of the strategies that we try to engage our investors.
Dr. Ebo, do you see the MPC holding? I don't want to say reducing.
I think they would hold, except we see a dramatic
number from the NBS. But the expectation is that our inflation will be lower when it's rebased.
I know it will be lower. When I say dramatic, we don't know how low it will be. Yeah.
Anyway, we have the projection. It's 25% inflation for this year. So
yes, that's based on the budget numbers. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see where that goes. But apart from the fixed income, the equities, any other area at this time that you think investors could look to?
No, I think that real estate, which based on the rebase, will be the third largest.
Overtaking oil and gas.
GDP is also an area where investors need to look at, but you need to understand that space. You need to work with experience, and so it's you see like a new terrain, but there are a lot of opportunities. You make return will be above inflation if you work with the right partners within that space, and you also get to invest within the right location.
And I think it's also very important that potential investors are very careful, because any area that gets attention, it's good and bad. So you hear a lot of stories, around.
Yeah, that's why the advice is to work with professionals that they're already within that terrain. So if you have to pay 1%, 2% for lawyers that are within that space to help
to cover your investment,
yes,
so
do
you
your search,
totally.
You do your search properly. Also working with the right developers. you also, the off-plan opportunities also gives a lot of upside potential upon completion if you do it rightly. So these are a mix of investments, then mutual funds. So for those that don't have the time to monitor shares, we're talking about different fixed income investment. You have the money market mutual fund, you have the equity mutual fund. These are funds that are managed by professional managers, portfolio managers. So you can invest in those funds, and because you also be assured that you know that there's someone looking after your investment, and you track your return over time.
All right, Dr. Ayode Jebo, thank you so much
Always
for your time
pleasure.
and those investment tips.